everyone, welcome back to the film industry. Now this episode is pertaining to something that everyone hates to deal with, and it has to do with resume, and specifically a production resume. When I was first starting out and I was still in college and I started to do a small project and I was building my resume, I had to think about writing my resume and putting it together, and I didn't have a lot of resources. You have career centers and all that on, your campus, but sometimes they don't really know how to write a film-related resume. Production resumes are going to look a little bit different than your average resume. A large portion of people who work in production or in the film industry usually have a lot of freelance, and when you go into let's say an office job, if they see a lot of bouncing around and like a giant number of different jobs, they think that you are like a gypsy in like the work world, and that's not really how do you want to be perceived. But people in the film industry, people in production know that freelance is pretty much the nature of the business. So I'm just going to start with the basics here for a resume. Number one, and it's very simple, make sure everything is spelled correctly. And as soon as you get spelling mistakes, it's just like you get thrown out of the pile. When I saw a spelling mistake, that just tells me that your attention to detail is not that good. Now, I have personal experience with this, and I got my ass chewed out in an interview once because I had a double space where it wasn't supposed to be. I think I had a space before a comma or something like that, and the guy was like, "This is ridiculous." I was like, holy shit. I was really blown away at the fact that this guy noticed that one mistake. I didn't notice it, but that really showed me that you want to double, triple check your resume for any type of punctuation errors. Now, this is really hard for people who have a lot of different freelance jobs, because you have a lot of lines that are going to be taken up, but you'll want to keep your resume to one page only. They're not going to read a 3-page resume, they're not going to read a 2-page resume. They have a couple seconds to look through a giant pile of resumes, and they have a couple seconds dedicated to each one. A lot of people make this mistake. They'll create a general resume and then they'll send it out to a bunch of people, and they'll expect it to apply to the certain job that they're applying to. So you want to make sure you specialize your resume into a specific position. You don't want to have just a general, have everything laid out. So for example, my resume, I have a lot of different positions. I was an editor, I was a camera person, I was a set PA, I've been producer, I've been director of certain things. So if I'm applying for an editing job, am I going to put my directing stuff on there if I'm trying to get an editing job? No. You want to make sure you X out some of the things that don't really apply to the position you're applying to. Myself, I have a number of different resumes. I have a photography one, I have a customer service one, I have a associate producer one, I have a camera one, I have an editing one. So I have a number of different resumes depending on the position I'm applying for. The next thing I'm going to say is make sure it's a simple design, meaning it's easy to look at, it's nice to look at, and there are lots of straight lines. You don't want everything everywhere and everything looking like a hot mess. On my resume here, you have the bolded titles here, they're all on the same line here, and then you have the bulleted, my experience, are all the same line here, and then like companies are all the same line here. So that is an example as far as the lines go. So you want to make sure that you have all the important stuff at the top. And for example, is if you're first starting out in school and you're doing like this volunteer stuff, meaning you're interning, put your internships first. Or, if you're still in school, your education and then your classes. But if you're graduated, you had a couple of internships, and then you have experience, you want your experience at the top, then your internships, and then your education at the bottom. So you want your education on there, but not necessarily at the top if you already have experience. So many people might have a question on, applying for jobs that may be out of state or out of the city that you're currently living in. And I have this resume here, and it has, I axed out my address, and I say no address. And I put no address because sometimes based on your address they won't hire you. So, and sometimes based on your number they won't hire you. So you always want to say sometimes at the end of your email that you are located in that place that you're trying to apply in. I'm not saying lie, but you may just want to say, I am residing in this area. So for example, myself, I am originally from Buffalo, New York, and now I live in the New Jersey, New York area, but I still have a Buffalo number. I have a 716 number. So sometimes people won't hire me because they think I'm still in Buffalo. So sometimes at the end of emails, I will say that I am residing in the New Jersey, New York City area. I was told that you always should put an objective, and then I kind of didn't do it for a while, but when you're applying for a certain position, and it may not be freelance, maybe you're applying to a production company or something like that, you want to make sure that you have a goal in mind, and you want to let them know what your goal is. So that's your objective. What are you trying to accomplish here? Where do you want to go? If you have camera skills or editing skills, or you have skills in certain software, you want to have a separate section for that. Regardless of the department you want to work in, always have a section for additional skills. This is my most current resume. The address is different, but so I have my objective, right? I have the objective, and I'll even read you what I have: to obtain a position working with and on cameras on a non-freelance basis within a company. So this is for me trying to get into a, camera gig with a production company, not necessarily just be freelance, okay? So then I have my qualification summary. I have over 4 years of camera operating experience, blah, 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 blah. So I kind of outline what makes me qualify for this job. And then I have actual experience. I go in this order. So I have photography, videography, all my camera stuff. I don't have anything that's kind of unrelated. I have everything that's kind of relates to the job. And then I have my education here. And under education, you probably do want to put your GPA, because sometimes that matters to people. You don't know who it's going to matter to, but if it matters, it matters. And it's always good to have a good GPA. And remember, do not lie on your resume, because if you lie on a resume, that's illegal and they can fire you for it down the line for it. And then after that, I have a section for additional skills. So here I have, a little bit of my leadership experience in there. I say I can lead and manage a team. I have knowledge of organizing and producing projects from start to finish. So I'm kind of expressing that, hey, I have these other abilities. Another is ability to edit on Final Cut and Adobe Premiere. Excellent ability to problem solve. So those are certain things that you want to put as additional skills. So right down there, I have it all about. And see, this is just one page, a ton of information, and it's only one page. You want to keep it to one page. So when your resume is done, you always want to have 2 different copies, meaning you have a PDF format and you have a Word doc format. Some people want it pasted in the email. They don't want attachments. So it's easier to open up a Word doc formatted file and just copy and paste it over into an email. I'm going to put a link on where you can convert your Word doc formats into PDF, or how to do that. When you have your finished resume, you always want to print a couple copies. So you have a hard copy ready to go when you happen to get an interview. At the interview, you always bring your resume with you no matter what. I don't care what they say. So emailing out your resume, this is kind of a tricky thing. So I'm going to say emailing out as far as not applying to a job, but kind of inquiring if employment's there. Always use your PDF format because it's easier to open, and always have a cover letter with it. Another thing about resumes is after you've actually done a project, you've gotten hired, and you've finished a freelance gig, you always want to make sure to put it on there. Update your resume, because man, sometimes you can do so many jobs and you'll forget what other jobs you did. And maybe sometimes that one job that you forgot to put on your resume may have gotten you another job. So that's it for this episode of the film industry. I know resume writing is super annoying and everyone hates it, but I hope this helps and give you some insight on resume writing for the film industry. And thanks for watching the film industry with the Amber Living Vlog.